Hello there, my crafty friends. It's Ashley Pfeiffer, the maker behind Stamped AF. I am an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Canada, and I want to share some cute projects for Halloween. So this month's InstaHop theme is 3D/Halloween. Because Halloween is not celebrated everywhere in the world, we wanted to offer some options. So I have created two different samples here. I actually have a third in mind, but these are featuring color changing tea lights from the Dollar Tree. So without further ado, let's get our craft on and I will show you how I made these. So this was my first sample and I really wanted to have a tea light behind it, but obviously it's too wide to be able to fit in a card base. So this is just like a freestanding display. This one uses window sheet with some re-inker and some Stampin' blends. Isn't it so cute? Some Wink of Stella, some glimmer paper, and I can't wait to show you how I did these bats. So then there's this one, because I thought, okay, well, I want to have like a freestanding thing, but more like a card. So obviously this does not quite flatten to be able to fit into an envelope and to mail. However, there is a little thing down here. Got a Velcro closure so that if this were to die, you can replace it without having to take this all apart. Now, it still would not fold flat because I've got it tied and adhered up here. So that was where my third idea was coming in, but I think I'm just going to go with this because it never fails when I go to change a design for a video. It ends up taking me an hour to record, so long to edit, and I'm just going to keep it as is. But I put in this little hole so that you can kind of manipulate that tea light to turn it off and then back on. You can also replace it like I just showed. Okay, so we are going to make this version. You could also use a magnetic closure down there. And we're going to do smaller holes because, I mean, really, this one doesn't need to be as big as it is. And this one is using vellum, but as you know, when vellum gets wet, it kind of warps. So that is kind of why I did this piece, because they were just going to be two standing pieces of cardstock. But it was kind of warpy, so I might use window sheet this time. I might use vellum. I haven't decided. But this one, I used both of them. I used rubbing alcohol. This one, I spritzed my Stampin' blends on. This one, I used some re-inker with a straw. So I think we'll do this one. This is basically the template that we need. So this will, see, this is what I'm talking about, just having it freestanding. Now, I don't know if it would actually work like this until we have those holes in there. It might work. It still would not fit in an envelope because unfortunately the only way to fold it down is like this, and then it is 6 3/4 inches long, so that wouldn't work. And every time I try kind of folding it the other way so it would fit, it doesn't. I mean, unless it was a Velcro closure again, but anyways, we're not going to worry about that because a tea light wouldn't fold flat to fit in an envelope, right? And the whole fun of this is that color changing. So let me give you the measurements and we're going to go through that. So I'm going to bring in my paper trimmer, and you need one sheet of cardstock for this, and then some glimmer paper and just some scraps. So we need a scrap of basic black, and we're actually, I think we're going to cut right into it this time, because on here you can see I use Starry Sky cardstock, and I really love the black. I love the black on both sides of that glimmer. So yeah, so some scraps of black because we need to be able to cut this house. It kind of looks like a spooky Disney castle. Instead of trying to pop it up, I've die cut 3 or 4 of them, and I can't wait to show you the windows and the stars and all of that. So one sheet, basic black. I've got a piece of glimmer paper. These stitched shapes dies, the circles, actually we're not going to use that one. The circle is for our little opening, and this is for our little banner with our boo. Entirely optional, of course. Okay, so let's cut this in half. So we need 4 1/4 by 10 1/2. Actually, maybe let's leave 4 1/4 by 11 for now. So we're going to score it at 3/4 of an inch, And I always like to do those smaller scores on this side of the blade. It gives you more to hold where it's still lined up here. So 3/4, 2 1/4, 3, and 4 1/2. So the tea lights that I found are 1.5 inches wide and 3/4 of an inch tall. Okay, so I'm just going to burnish these with my fingers. Probably use a bone folder as it goes on. Okay, but here is the basis. Originally I had an extra fold under there, but we really don't need it. So right now, this is 6.5 inches, so we need it to be 5.5. So we do need it to be 10 inches, not 10.5. Okay, so 4 1/4 by 10. I'll hang on to that because I might be able to use it for this. It'll be very close. Okay, so before we can even think about adhering anything, we have some die cutting to do. So our circles need to go in these 1.5 inch areas. And while we have this out, this is 4 1/4. So half would be 2 1/8. So I'm going to, this doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm going to eyeball it with that line there. And I'll put some tape down. And I have been using this Scotch brand low tack tape. Loving it. It doesn't tear. It's reusable. Okay, so we'll do that. And then while we're doing our die cutting, we might as well put in our little scary opening. Our scary cute. So we need this for our glimmer paper, and we need this one in the black. Might as well take this out as well. And actually I saw a really cute idea that I want to use for the cat. We need all of those. You know, I'm dumb. Why didn't I just use, oh, because it doesn't fit, that's why. I'm like, I don't think I even noticed this, but I mean, I love the pierced look of these. They're not stitched, they're pierced. I guess actually on the outside it's stitched, inside is pierced. Just in case. Okay, so we want to go centered again. So let's take this to 2 1/8. And if we kind of eyeball it here, which I know is a little tricky to do. Let's get it like that. We need to make sure that it's not too high up or too low down. Needs to be just right, no Goldilocks here. So I will tape it down, but I'm also going to make sure that when we fold this up, it lines up, because you don't want that hole to be right there, right? Okay, so there's, and we can keep this circle for something else. I know it's very tiny, but it'll work. Okay, and now basically we just need to make sure that's underneath there. I'll take this out. Whoops. And if you get any sticky residue, just use an adhesive eraser. I get mine from Dollar Tree. Oh, so many good things at Dollar Tree, right? Okay, so what else can we run through at the same time? Anything? I am thinking we'll use that for our bats. So let me show you how I did that. The glitter washi tape. So if you notice on my sample, I've got my sparkly bats. I've also got purple windows. This is the gold glimmer paper from the glimmer paper pack in the holiday catalog. So is this. They actually look glow in the dark. But my bats are all nice and sparkly. Got green windows in this one. So I think we're going to do it based on this. We'll stick with the same glimmer paper because I kind of love that this is like, it's as bright as a full moon would be, but obviously it's a crescent moon. Okay, so we'll keep the green and the black out. So since we don't have black glimmer paper anymore, all I did was I covered a scrap of basic black with washi tape. You don't want to leave much of a seam because if you were to look really closely, you could see the seam, and you don't want to have like a non-sparkly part. Err on the side of more tape is better because you don't want to run out of room for your bats. So we are going to die cut 3 of them. I actually tried just embossing with some black cardstock to see if I could get a nice thick glossy bat. I tried coloring like the silver foil and none of it was as perfect as this was. Some bats. So we're going to do 1 small, 1 medium, 1 large. Our little Goldilocks theme continues. And then I've got a scrap of my glimmer paper. This is actually very vanilla. I'm going to cut a little piece out. You can see I've got some stars. That is from the Witch Builder hat punch. So let's just cut another piece here. So we'll do the moon and some stars. So all I need for my die cutting is a little scrap. That's far more than I need. And we'll do the moon. It's always nice to get as much as possible in one cut. We'll keep this out for the stars. Die cut this, do our other circle. Okay, so here is our second circle. We've got our little bats. Perfect. And if you want them to be popped up a little bit, just die cut some more bats in black cardstock and you'll have a little bit of some dimension. I did that on one of them, not both of them. So this one, you can see that there's a little bit of depth there. It's because I decided to cover up the foil ones that I had colored. Didn't love them. And if you don't have this punch, there are a number of die sets that have stars. I just love that this was a punch and it takes like no time at all. We're just going to do 3, so I think I'm going to use this little scrap instead of starting a new one. I don't know, can I get 2 out of this little area? I can. Okay, so I need to die cut a few of the haunted houses, so I will just cut this piece down. I'm going to do all of my die cutting first, and then we'll do kind of the messy stuff. So let's do, I'm going to do probably 4 of the mansions and maybe 2 of the cats. Okay, so we just need to glue these together. Second from last layer, we're going to add our washi tape, and you need to make sure that it stays completely on that die cut. And now we'll add glue to the back of our top one. And sandwich that in. So cute. Just tear a couple of pieces. I think we'll do this tall one here because it'll cover both. I don't know that anyone else would notice, but there's a gap. It can be tricky to find the end, but I found that if you just hold it sideways, you can see where it gets a little bit thicker. I mean, it's not the thickest of tapes to begin with, but that is how I quickly find the end. That's too much. And I've got a little fold there, so that would impact the top layer, and I don't want that. It's funny, I'm finding it a whole lot easier to add the glue when it's lying flat. So why do I keep trying to hold it upright? Okay, that ought to be enough. And you can have it just sit under something heavy, some blocks or something, just until it's fully set. Since I have some messy work to do, I'm going to do just that. Okay, so I have a tip for you, and if you don't have this exact product, a well-lit window will do. It's nighttime, so if you caught my recent live stream, you noticed that I use my Cricut Bright Pad to help. So turn it on, place that over. Now we only need this to be, let's say, 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. That's fine, but I'm not going to cut it yet because I've done that before and it doesn't work so well. So instead, I'm going to line this up and just place my die like that. Now, I know there are other ways to do this, but I'm not using my Cricut so much these days, so I thought, hey, Bright Pad's just sitting down there. But like I said, just a brightly lit window would suffice. And it moved. This tape isn't the best for glitter paper. Okay, gotta bring in the big guns. That's not gonna work. So, yellow tape it is. Just make sure it's centered. Doesn't have to be perfect, but it's going to be quite obvious if it is not aligned. So because the bottom isn't going to open now, because if you look at it, the way I had it, I had an extra flap because of that 3/4 one that I decided to take off, because who needed that? We are going to have it where the Velcro attaches here or here. You could, like I said, you could also use a magnet. Okay, so easy enough to turn on there. We can't see much right now. And you may be thinking, oh, well, I don't need to put a back piece on there. But the back piece is so that the light has something to reflect off of. Now, I did say you only needed 1 sheet, but I think I was probably a little generous with the amount I left for the die cutting. So, well, it's ideal to have this go all the way to the bottom, unless I cut another piece. I don't think it's going to line up quite the way that I want it to, but we'll see. So far, so good. I mean, I used almost all of that. I probably could get one more cat out of there. Okay, enough of that. Let's go on to the messy part. So, Stampin' Up! Window sheet comes in 12 by 12 sheets. It is very strong acetate, and I know you're going to get nothing but glare and reflections, but I want you to see it. So I am going to cut down, how wide is this? The opening is about 2 1/4 inches, so I'm going to give myself 4 by 4. So every time I move my trimmer out, it needs to come back in. Now, I would suggest being very careful with this because you don't want to scratch it up. So kind of let it hang there. There is tissue paper that comes with it. Okay, so 4 inches. And put this one right back in the package so it doesn't get scratched. And then cut the rest of it down. So 4 by 4. So there are a couple of different ways that we can do this. We can use Stampin' blends, which is how I did my vellum window. You can use reinkers, which is what I used on this one. You can use a combination of the two. So I think that's what we're going to do. We have a spray bottle. So this is 70%, and that should work just fine. I'm going to grab 3 colors of ink. So I have got Gorgeous Grape, Orchid Oasis, and Starry Sky. Now hopefully they aren't too close. So what we'll do is just add a couple of drops. Now I have a straw, and I think I'm going to turn this around so that my overlap covers the mist. So what we're going to do is give it a spritz, and you don't want to overdo it because you will end up with just a blob of ink. So now I've got a little bit on there. I'm just going to blow. If you get lightheaded easily, stop and take a breath. And I say that because I do. So you are just going to play around until you get what you want. Now, right now, there is a whole lot of Starry Sky, not a whole lot of purple. Kind of looks like fresh freesia. So here I'm just going to color on some stripes, and if you find you've picked up another color, then just scribble it off. Got dark Starry Sky, dark Highland Heather, and dark Orchid Oasis. I'm going to try not to mix those colors because, of course, the alcohol is going to do that for us. Try drying this on low. If I want to build up my color, because this isn't much of a window right now, right? Also because it's facing white, but it's not much of a window. It's either too light or too dark. But instead of messing with what I've already done, let's go to the other side. So now I can add some Starry Sky. It's a fun sound, isn't it? I'll add some more Highland Heather. And you can mix the colors, or you can go in the same order you did on the other side. Entirely up to you. If you're finding it's taking too long to dry, spray it with alcohol. So whatever wet spots remain, I'm just gonna dab those, because I think it's just straight re-inker, and it's not taking it right off the page. Okay, so the final step is to use some Whisper White craft ink, and we're going to dilute that. And using a fan brush or whatever you want to use, just do a little squirt on a clear block. Add some water. Mix it up. My white is being very cheap. Anyone else find it's really hard to squeeze the white one? Whoa. Okay, there we go. And then just flick it on. And if it's not flicking, give it a bit more water until it does, like that. And if you don't have Whisper White ink, which is so weird to say because our paper is basic white now, then just use some white acrylic paint. Dilute it, and same thing. And then it looks like it's a starry night. Don't let it sit too long. You want to go and rinse it right away. Let's get our magnetic dots on, our Velcro dots or magnets. I prefer Velcro. And I get these from Michael's in the sewing section, and I just stick them together. Got two stuck together here, and I just cut them apart. So these need to go on here. And it can be really hard to tell which side is which when you're taking them apart. Doesn't really matter because it's not going to be a high touch point. I do like to put the softer part on the high touch point. I am going to take approximately an inch off of here. I may have to clean my trimmer after this. That is okay. Okay, I would not suggest the re-inkers. They just don't want to dry. Let's go to 3.5. I would recommend using an alcohol wipe to clean both your fingers and your trimmer. It's a miracle. Helps make the art and clean it up. So I will do that before. Look how pretty that wipe is. Before I go to use this with basic white cardstock and ruin whatever I'm working on. Okie dokie, folks, you ready? We're going to put some tear and tape to adhere our window. Okay, now before you adhere this, remember, put any wet part on the inside, but before you adhere it, just turn it over and see that you like which way it's looking. Like maybe you want the purple to be on the side, or maybe you want it to be at the top. I'm gonna go like this. And then with that Kleenex that I had in my hand, now you see I'm not, it's still wet. I am not capturing all of the tear and tape, but that's okay. I can't believe how wet that still is. Never fails when it's for a video. It never goes as planned, ever. Okay, so now we could probably go ahead and adhere this, although I'm reluctant. And we're not going to be able to adhere it at the top the way I did on my first one. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to pull that apart to be able to open it. So I can punch holes and tie a ribbon, but I don't want to, like this one is adhered and then I put the bow on. This one, we won't do that same thing. Their windows need some Windex. Let's go ahead and adhere it now. I'll probably live to regret that, but what else is new? Because I don't have much leverage here, I'm going to cut my tear and tape. Just have a feeling that once this cardstock is on the back, it'll be easier to manipulate. If you don't want to have any exposed tear and tape, you could use your embossing buddy to remove the stick. You could put another piece of window sheet over top of this. You could put a piece of vellum on it so it's a little less see-through. I think I'm going to leave it as is. Then you're going to line that up. Just like so, because there's really no room for error, which is never fun with tear and tape. So let's adhere our cat and our imagine, which will hide some faux pas. I'm going to add Wink of Stella to both. It may be creepy, but that doesn't mean it can't be sparkly too. Combo to the back here. Doesn't really need to go on the top of the mansion because it's not going to be adhered. I've got a little piece that shouldn't be in there. Because it's not going to really hug that curve anyways. What can I put? Okay, we're going to have it where it's kind of on the black at the bottom there. If you see any liquid glue, just wipe it away while it's still wet. I know people say that it dries clear, but it also dries shiny, and I don't like that. Now, that is what I was thinking, but when it's up close, you can see all of those little bits, and I don't like it. So I think I'm gonna cut off. I don't know what that part's supposed to be. I think it's just grass. But I'm gonna cut off the little flat part on the bottom. And this. I'll put a link to, I believe it was a live stream I did that had this cat, and I used the Window Wishes bundle, made a spooky little scene. So I'll link that up here. Speed through the rest of it here. So I'm going to put the moon up here, add some glue for the stars. So we currently don't have a great alphabet, but I mean, you could use the Alphabest stamp set. It's not my favorite alphabet, so I decided I'm gonna take a look at Jingle, Jingle, Jingle. And we have a B and we have an O. So we are going to stamp the B and the O, but we are going to stamp them, oh my gosh. We are going to stamp them and then cut them out. Now, if you don't want to cut them out, then you're going to do a little bit of masking, which is how I started doing mine, and then I decided to cut them out. So let's use, I kind of want to bring in some of the purple. Maybe we'll use some Gorgeous Grape. Now, instead of heat embossing, because half my house is asleep, because my day did not go as planned, nowhere near. It was very productive, but it was ADD on steroids today. Okay, so I'm not masking this at all. I'm just stamping and I will cut them out. I did mask them the first time around. Okay, so there we go. Now, if you haven't used Whisper White craft ink, that is the refill that we were using, but it does take longer to dry. So I'm going to clean this up. This Basic White or Whisper White is actually great for embossing as well because it does take longer to dry. So I will go ahead and die cut my little stitched banner. If you plan better than I do, you'd be able to fit it there, but look at that. Like a glove. The first time that I stamped and cut these letters, I tried punching out the holes in the middle, and let me tell you, it was such a pain. So when I did these ones, they are heat embossed, I colored them with blends, but I think the other thing I could do is color it in with black. So I'm gonna try it on this one. Famous last words, right? But I have a feeling that would make it look like it's punched out, but it's actually not. And so much easier. What do you think? You probably can't see it as well, but I think it looks better. Okay, so whenever I fussy cut, whether it be with safety scissors or not, I always take my buffing block, which is a dedicated one. You can see I was buffing my letters yesterday when I made my sample. Okay, I think it needs some differentiation, so I will use Highland Heather just to color it in. Okay, so we can go ahead and adhere that. I am going to pop it up. We'll use a little edge of black dimensionals, because why not? There are other times of the year where you can use black dimensionals, but it seems like with Halloween you just have to. Okay, so now we're just going to pinch it together. But I'm going to turn off my light here so you can see But again, that short little video in my stories on Instagram and Facebook will give you a very good idea of what it looks like. Speaking of which, if you do not follow me on Facebook or Instagram, please head on over. If this was your first time here, welcome. If it wasn't, welcome back. I'm so sorry, I always do this at the end. But I hope that you enjoyed this. I would love to know which one's your favorite. This one's Starry Sky. This one is Orchid Oasis. I love how they turned out. I'm loving the letters, like just that extra touch, right? So let's see if I can kind of pop these up. Turn this light off and that light off. Like, how cool. It's also really cool and they change at the same time. I hope that if you create one of these, you will share it with me. You can tag me on Instagram at StampedAF. You can add it to my Facebook group, my Facebook page. You can email it to me at stampedaf@gmail.com. You can send it by carrier pigeon, however you want to share it. I would love to see it. I want to thank you so much for sticking around, and we'll see you soon, my crafty friends. Bye.